Hi everyone, today we'll be looking at Chapter 10, Reward Systems and Legal Issues. So here's an overview of the reward systems section. Traditional and contingent pay, reasons for introducing different types of contingency pay plans, problems associated with those plans, selecting a plan, the context of choosing a payment plan and a payment structure. So a couple definitions first. Traditional pay is when salary increases are based on an individual's position or based on seniority, how long that individual has been with the company. Okay, that's our traditional pay system. And contingency pay is when salary increases are based on performance. They're also called pay for performance models. And if they're not added to base pay, if there's no base pay in place, if the compensation is purely pay for performance, then this is usually called variable pay. You might see it called variable pay. Okay, so some reasons for introducing a contingency pay structure. Performance management is more effective when rewards are tied to results. If an individual is going to be rewarded for harder work, then it makes sense that that individual may indeed work harder. These plans, contingency pay plans, force organizations to define the criteria for performance, define clear goals, and also determine what factors are necessary for success. What does success look like? Okay, with contingency pay plans, this needs to be outlined from the start, so the employee knows what he or she must do to get that to meet that goal and to get that contingency pay. Okay. Supervisors and employees are better able to understand what really matters. Again, the goals are more clear with contingency pay. Well, not always the case, but it should be the case. And these plans help to enhance employee motivation. They help employees to accomplish goals that match the organizational needs and to hopefully align the employee needs, the employee goals with the organizational goals. Okay. And one more reason for contingency pay plans, they help to recruit and retain top performers. Those top performers may be attracted to those positions and those projects that pay for performance. Okay, and so if that's the case, then it makes sense that very high-performing individuals like consultants or high-level executives might be attracted to positions where pay is based on performance because they're confident that they can do a great job. They have a track record of doing a great job. Okay. So, what are some possible problems associated with contingency pay? Well, there may be a poor performance management system in place if contingency pay is the case. If contingency pay is the only thing that's motivating employees, then it might be the case that the performance management system is poor. And if money is the only driver of results, then the performance management system may need to be revamped or at least looked at, maybe corrected in some way. Rewarding counterproductive behavior. If the goals are not aligned with the the goals of the specific project or the position is not aligned with the organizational goals, then you may be rewarding an individual for completing goals that aren't helping the overall direction of the company. Okay, if the rewards are not considered significant, then no one's going to try to reach those goals. Managers are not accountable. It's solely, well, this shouldn't be the case, but it often becomes the case that the reward is the sole driver and managers are not accountable for the employee's performance. The employee is basically on his or her own to achieve that goal and to get that reward. And managers are not a factor, and that can be problematic. Obviously, pay for performance is extrinsic motivation, and there's certainly a lot of value in intrinsic motivation as well. So programs that are purely based on extrinsic motivation, um, if rewards are purely contingency pay, then intrinsic motivation is being ignored. And there are large rewards for higher level jobs, for executive level jobs, and this could lead to some issues with fairness. Some employees might feel that they are not being rewarded enough for the hard work that they're doing compared to higher level executive employees. Okay. So, what are some issues to consider when developing a contingency pay plan? Thinking about the culture of the organization and the strategic direction of the organization. So, in terms of culture, you want to figure out if the organization is a traditional top-down decision-making organization, if the decisions get passed down from the executives to the managers to the employees. Is it our jobs clearly defined? There are clear roles, and everybody has their own clear and specific role. Okay, those are characteristics of a more traditional organization. Or is there more involvement, a more involved organization as opposed to a more traditional organization? In an involved organization, decision making is shared. Communication is lateral. Okay, so there's decision making and decision making power shared between amongst people, and communications go up and down from employees up to the executives, and from executives down to the employees. And roles are more loosely defined. They're not so clear and specific. Everybody contributes in one way or another, more so than just their specific role or job that they've been hired for. Okay, their roles are loosely defined. Okay, so that's certainly something to consider. And strategic directions, certainly want to consider the strategic direction of the organization, and is the strategy of the organization to develop employees? If it is, then contingency pay for performance might be a good idea. If you're trying to motivate employees to improve their skills to get better at something, it might be a good idea to reward that. If the focus is on customer service, certainly it might be a good idea there. You can have something like the employees getting paid more based on their customer service ratings, or something like that. So if the goal is to improve customer service, then it might be a good idea. And if overall profit is a goal, this is where those really, really big salaries that executives are awarded, that's where those come in. So if overall profit is the goal, then giving an executive 5% of a $20 million increase in profits for a year, or I should say 5% of whatever that executive is able to increase the profits of the organization for that year. If he or she increases the profits by $20 million, that's a huge chunk of money for that executive. So if overall profit for the organization is the goal, then pay for performance for those top level executives might be a good idea. Okay. So let's put pay into context. Rewards increase the chances that specific behaviors and results will be repeated. That's sort of Psych 101 there, reinforcing behaviors with rewards. And employees will engage in new behavior and produce better results. So that's the motivational piece of pay for performance. So if employees are to be rewarded more generously for better performance, then it stands to reason that they'll be motivated to provide better performance. And rewards can include not just money, but anything here: pay, recognition, status. Those are promotions and things of that nature. time and sabbaticals, so vacation time, time away, time for personal development, or things like that. Trust and respect between colleagues, or trust and respect between a manager and his or her employees. More challenging projects and more challenging roles, being promoted to a more challenging position, being given more responsibility. Some people don't enjoy that, but many people do enjoy that. More freedom, depending on his or her job. So maybe the freedom to work from home, or something like that. And the relationships that people form by working on specific projects and specific tasks. Okay, let's move on from pay structures. Oh, actually, one more thing I'd like to get into before we move on from that. Job evaluation and broad banding. So with job evaluation, this is the method of data collection that you're going to use. There are a few different methods, and we'll get to those in just a second. This is when you determine the worth of various jobs in the organization and create a pay structure that sort of differentiates between the different jobs in the organization. Maybe you have different pay levels for each specific role in the organization, or each department within the organization. Okay, and you certainly have to consider the KSAs required for each job. Those are knowledge, skills, and abilities required for each job. If the KSAs are more difficult to acquire for a certain job, then that person would probably be paid more than for others in other jobs. That job would be more valuable. Okay. All right. So different types of job evaluations. There are 3 listed here: ranking, classification, and point. Let's talk about ranking first. This is when job descriptions are created. These job descriptions are then compared to each other, and jobs are ranked according to most important to least important, in relation to the overall direction of the company. So the jobs that are towards the top of the list, as you would imagine, would be awarded more money, since they're more important to the organization. Probably these jobs towards the top of the list would include the executive positions, sort of the C-suite positions. The owner of the company would be up there, chairman, CEO, COO, all those types of jobs, and then president, vice president, and you can imagine down the list, these jobs get less important to the overall direction of the company. They get more, the individuals in these roles are more replaceable, and thus they are not paid as much. Their skills are not as valuable to the organization. So some advantages of using a ranking method: it requires little time. It doesn't require much time. Simple ranking method, obviously, and the other methods are a bit more involved. So if a pay program is needed quickly, then ranking might be the best bet. And if jobs are clearly defined and roles are very specific and they're easily able to be easily ranked, then obviously the ranking method might be a good idea. So that means if the jobs are not so clearly defined, then ranking might not be a good idea. If the distances between each rank are not equal, then this could pose a problem as well. If there's a big gap between the job in the number 2 spot and the job in the number 3 spot, there's a big gap in importance between 2 and 3, but there's a very small gap in importance between 3 and 4. This could affect the pay structure, and if it's not handled very carefully, then this could lead to some employees feeling as though they are not being treated fairly or not being paid appropriately for their contributions. Okay. So let's move on to the second type of job evaluation, classification. So with classification, a series of classes or grades are created and each job is placed within a job class. So this is when there are different sections created and each job and clusters of jobs are placed within these sections. You might have seen these in government. A lot of government organizations use this structure. So I don't remember exactly how a lot of government organizations do that, but if I recall, there will be maybe an A rank or a B rank and a C rank, and then all the jobs within the A rank get paid the same amount, even though those jobs may be different. All the jobs in the B rank get paid the same amount, even though all those jobs might be different. And the same with the C rank, they all get paid the same amount, even though the jobs may be different, but A is paid more than B, B is paid more than C. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right. So some advantages for using classification: if the jobs can be quickly slotted into structure, if there are clusters of jobs that are obviously can be clearly clustered together, if it makes sense to cluster these jobs together, then the classification method might be a good idea. And that's because employees will accept these groupings, these classifications, if they do in fact seem valid. Okay. So if jobs can't be slotted into different classes, different grades clearly, then this could create problems in terms of fairness, perceptions of fairness. So might not be a good idea. All right, let's go on to the point method. So identifying compensable factors. So characteristics or tasks associated with the job that deserve to be considered in the compensation decision. So each one of these factors, for example, any one job may have 10 factors, and these factors are given a rating of 1 to 5 in terms of how important they are to the organization's overall strategy, or to the organization's growth, profit, whatever the goal may be. So for a job that has 10 factors, it might have a maximum, any job with 10 factors has a maximum score of, say, 50, and then a minimum score of 10. Okay, so one job all factors may add up to be 45. In another job, they may add up to be 42. In the next job, they may add up to be 38. So 45 is going to be paid more than 42. 42 is going to be paid more than 38, and so on and so forth. So assigning a weight to each of these factors that determines where these jobs fall in relation to each other, considering importance, okay, the importance of the position. And then the weighting can be used to also determine how much they're being paid. So if you have a maximum pay, if a job scores 100%, if the job gets all the points it can possibly get, then they're going to get 100% of that maximum pay. If the job gets 75% of the maximum points, then they're going to get 75% of the maximum pay, and so on and so forth. So some advantages of using the point method: it establishes worth of each job relative to other jobs, so that's important, and it tells you something about the distance between jobs. Remember, with our ranking method, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can't really tell the distance between each job in terms of importance. With the point method, you can tell difference. You can see that one job is 5 points higher than another. One job is 7 points higher than another. You can see the distance as it relates to the difference in importance. let's talk about broadbanding. Now, broadbanding is the most commonly used pay structure, and this type of structure collapses jobs into classes. Collapses job classes into fewer categories. So similar to the classification method, but with this one, with broadbanding, you're sort of classifying the classes, so to speak. You're classifying those grades into even fewer groups, into even fewer classes. Okay, so some advantages of doing this is it provides flexibility in rewarding people. If you have a bunch of different jobs, a bunch of different classes of jobs, all in a single category, you can make a case for rewarding these people in the same way. Okay, and this gives more responsibility to the managers to be, if the manager is managing a bunch of different types of jobs, a bunch of different positions, a bunch of different classes of positions, he or she has more responsibility over how he or she sets the pay levels, or sets the reward system. Okay. So let's look at a summary of the reward systems we just went over. We looked at traditional and contingent pay plans. Some reasons for introducing contingent pay plans, possible problems, and when to select contingency pay plans, the positives and negatives, advantages and disadvantages. We looked at putting pay into context, so considering the organization, considering the structure of the organization, considering the strategic goals of the organization. And then we looked at different pay structures, so that would be the ranking pay structure, the classification pay structure, and the broadbanding pay structure. Okay. So now let's move away from reward systems and into legal issues. So we'll be discussing performance management and the law, some legal principles affecting performance management, and laws that have been put into effect that influence performance management. And you may be surprised, a lot of these laws have been implemented fairly recently, not too long ago. So performance management and the law, performance management systems are usually legally sound if the procedures are standardized, if you can make some kind of case for why you use the procedures you used, why you designed the system that you did, if it's based on best practices, if it's based on some sort of data collection or testing that you developed, and also those testing methods must be legally sound as well. But if you can provide some sort of sound reasoning for why you are using the performance management system that you are, or why you developed the performance management system that you did, then you're usually okay within the eyes of the law. Okay, if your reasons are, it's tricky. If your reasons are good enough, if your reasons are sound based on best practices. Okay. So some legal principles affecting performance management. Employment at will. Employment at will. So employment relationship can be ended at any time by the employer or the employee, except when there is a contract in place, or if there's a violation of the employee's legal rights. Okay, negligence. If an organization documents, if an organization documents describe a system and it is not implemented as it is described, then the employee can challenge the evaluation, and he or she can charge the organization for being negligent. For really, they're saying that the organization is trying to um, enforce this performance management system that um, was not presented accurately when that employee was brought on. Okay, so they're not treating the employee as they said that they would. This is negligence. Defamation. If an organization discusses an employee's performance or discloses the employee's performance when they shouldn't, and that is the information that they provide is untrue and unfavorable. So it's not true, and it hurts the employee's job chances for a different position, hurts the employee's professional future. Then that employee may be able to sue for defamation. Misrepresentation. This is the disclosure of performance information that is untrue and favorable. Okay, so while defamation is untrue and unfavorable, misrepresentation is untrue and favorable. So basically, lying to make yourself look better, whether it's on a job interview, if it's on a job interview, it'd be difficult because it's not unless the interview is recorded, and there's proof. But lying on a resume or a formal job application, misrepresenting yourself, sort of embellishing some facts to make yourself look better, that can actually you can actually have legal action taken against you. And usually that would only happen after the employee was hired due to that untrue information and had some negative impact in the company. Then that may happen. You know, if the employer figures out that the applicant is lying before that applicant is even hired, then that applicant would probably just be turned down. There's no reason to take legal action at that point. Okay, so adverse impact. This is probably one of the most complicated of the issues. Adverse impact, also called unintentional discrimination. So this is when a performance management system has an unintentional negative impact on a protected class. Okay, so if this charge is brought against an organization, then the organization must demonstrate that the specific knowledge, skills, and abilities that they are evaluating employees on for this performance management system, as a part of this performance management system, are required for success in the job. They have to prove that. And they have to prove that all employees are evaluated in the same way. Okay, this is how organizations can protect themselves from adverse impact. And if they can't do these, whether they meant to discriminate against a certain protected class by only using certain knowledge, skills, and abilities, or ignoring other knowledge, skills, and abilities, or evaluating other employees more favorably or less favorably based on class status, whether they're doing this purposely, or whether this was unintentional, legal action can still be taken against them, either way. And in either case, it's up to the organization to prove that they did everything they could to keep everything fair, or else they could be sued or have something else happen to them that will punish them in some way. Illegal discrimination. So this is purposefully rating certain employees more poorly than others based on factors that are not related to performance. Okay, so rating individuals poorly because you simply do not like them, or for personal reasons, or for reasons for things that occurred outside of the workplace. These are not related to performance, and thus they should not be used to assign ratings to individuals, and doing so is discrimination. Okay, so let's look at some laws affecting performance management. So just during the past few decades, a lot of countries have been passing laws that protect against discrimination, and these are protected classes that are protected under these laws. Certain races or ethnicities, discrimination based on sex, religion, national origin, certain age groups, if an individual has disability status, and more recently, sexual orientation as well. So some laws in America: Equal Pay Act of 1963, Civil Rights Act 1964, AIDS Discrimination Act, and the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. And I believe these are gone over in some detail in your textbooks. If not, it might be a good idea to go do some reading about these. I mean, they're certainly very, very interesting, even if nothing else for the historical context that surrounded the development of these laws. Just where America was in terms of its history, and the cases that sort of the landmark cases that brought about these laws. It's all very interesting. So what should performance management systems look like if they are to protect against legal recourse? So the system should be explained and communicated to all employees, so all employees know how they're being evaluated, what they need to do to achieve success, so no one is surprised when they are evaluated on certain criteria. And this is just good practice. I mean, that's just something that we've been talking about all quarter. Obviously, there should be communication, so everybody knows what's going on. Employees will be more likely to adopt the performance management system, to buy into it, to accept it. If the system has a formal appeals process, again, just good practice. These are all good practice, actually. So formal appeals process, if the employee has sort of an internal way to file complaints or to appeal a decision, then that employee is less likely to seek legal help. I mean, think about it. If an employee gets a bad performance review, or they feel they're being discriminated against, and there's no way for them to complain or file a complaint or file an appeal in-house, then they're going to go to someone externally. They're maybe a lawyer, maybe a legal entity. So make sure a formal appeals process is in place for employees to exercise that option if they feel the need to. When procedures are standardized and uniform, certainly if employees feel that they are being evaluated on a different standard, or with a different method than other employees, they're more likely to feel that they're being treated unfairly and possibly being discriminated against. And the system should include procedures to detect discriminatory effects or biases. So to me, this is really just evaluation of your performance management system. If you evaluate your performance management system and you see that all individuals of a certain protected class are doing poorly, say all women in the company are being rated very poorly, if you find that during the evaluation, then you might say, hey, there might be some sort of bias towards women employees, towards female employees in this performance management system. We need to take a look at this and fix this before, ethically, we need to fix this, and also from a financial standpoint and a legal standpoint, we need to fix this before legal action is brought against us. Because, as we talked about, legal action can be legal recourse can be brought against the organization even if the discrimination is unintentional. Okay, from the management perspective, employees management perspective, supervisors are provided with formal training and information on how to manage the performance of their employees. So well-trained supervisors that are rating everybody fairly and consistently. Again, just good practice. Performance information is gathered from multiple, diverse, and unbiased raters. Okay, so again, rating employees based solely on performance and not letting any biases get in the way. Having performance information come from different sources, so it's not just one single person who may be biased. If there's one single person providing ratings, there's more, the likelihood increases of an unfair or an undeserved rating. If there's more people rating, there's just a better chance for accuracy, or more of a chance of catching bias before it affects the rating. And the system includes thorough and consistent documentation. Okay, so if an employee feels like he or she is being discriminated against, and even if that claim is unfounded, if it's not true, if the employee is being treated fairly, and he or she is wrong in his or her opinion of being discriminated against, then it's good to have documentation outlining all of the examples of performance and information that's been gathered on this employee, on which the ratings have been based. So good to have this documentation when any legal issues come up. That's something we've talked about as well. And from the employee perspective, performance dimensions and standards are clearly defined and explained, job-related, within the control of the employee. So again, this has to deal with communication. The KSAs are relevant to the job. The employees actually need these KSAs to do the job well. And the employee has control over how he or she performs on the job. Okay, it's up to them to perform well. If an employee has no chance of success in an organization and then is rated poorly, that's an unfair system. Employees are given timely information on their performance deficiencies and opportunities to correct them. If an employee is neglected and not told anything about their performance, and then one day a manager just comes by and says, hey, you haven't been doing well, and we can't keep you on anymore. If the employee had no idea that he was doing poorly, the employee could have corrected his or her behavior, but wasn't given the opportunity. This may lead the employee to seek legal action. And whether they would win or not is unclear. That's a sort of a tricky situation, but every case is looked at individually, and they may have a case. And employees are given a voice in the review process, treated with courtesy and civility. So again, this really just helps with buy-in. When employees are given a voice, they're more likely to buy into the performance management system. If they've helped create it, they'll be more likely to accept it, and less likely to say that it is unfair. Okay. So a quick review, we looked at the different types of reward systems, the salary model, the pay for performance model. We looked at, what else did we look at? We looked at putting pay into context. So looking at the culture of the organization, looking at the strategic direction of the organization. We looked at different types of rewards, not just pay, but also recognition, trust and respect, new challenges, new responsibilities, forming relationships with other people, gaining more freedom, more time off. We looked at pay structures and how to develop them. That has to do with job evaluation and classifying jobs, broadbanding, or into different grades or classifications. Okay, and the positives and negatives of using different reward structures and different job classification systems, different pay structures. We also looked at legal issues. So some of the most prominent legal issues that affect organizations in relation to their performance management systems. Um, we looked at protected classes and some laws that were put into place in America that have to do with performance management systems and fair treatment at work, fair evaluation at work. And then we also looked at the characteristics of legally sound performance management systems from the organizational point of view, the management point of view, and the employee point of view. So that's about it for Chapter 10. Thank you all for joining me again, and have a great week. Bye now.